Well, thank you very much, Graham, and it's very good to see you here in what I gather was a dormitory last night. Because for those of you that don't know, here in the House of Lords, Monday finished about 3.5 hours ago because we just carried on talking all night in that wacky, zany, modern, progressive way that we do occasionally here. So if Richard and I are behaving slightly strangely, it's probably due to sleep deprivation more than anything else. But yeah, I've been asked to talk a bit about how you sort of start to change minds within large organisations, and there, I think what people are referring to is my experience in government, particularly around the work I did when I was schools minister for 3 years in trying to get technology into people's thinking a bit more strategically than it was, and in particular the rollout of the Home Access Programme, which has got, how many people did we in the end manage to get?
Probably reached about 500,000.
About 500,000 lower income families got online as a result of the Home Access Initiative. And I worked for two Prime Ministers, Tony and Gordon. Tony kind of, I guess in a bit of a Tony sort of way, talked a really good game on technology. He didn't really use it at all. I gather that when he stopped being Prime Minister, he had that sort of strange, the world's moved on in the last 10 years. I used to have a brick that was a phone, and they took that off me, and now they've given me this thing. And people used to know when they got a text message from Tony because it made no sense at all. So engagement with Tony on technology, really, that was sort of, I had a year as schools minister under Tony, and really I was just trying to get my foot under the table and get to grips with things. But towards the end of that first year, I started to see the importance of technology. I had an inheritance from people like Charles Clarke and Estelle Morris, who'd invested very heavily in interactive whiteboards in classrooms. We were, I think at the time, the biggest purchaser of whiteboards anywhere in the world. We've now, I think, been overtaken by Mexico, although we still have the largest number of interactive whiteboards per class. There's a statistic which my brain's too fuddled to work out how to tell you, but per student or something like that. Anyway, but by the time Gordon came along, who incidentally, I once did get an email from Gordon. So he did use the technology. He kind of got it. He was quite passionate about it by the end. But I think he'd done it about 6 o'clock in the morning. I just had this vision of this bloke with very big fingers, because it was forwarded on from number 10, and it was, I kept it. It was very difficult to read in its own way. But anyway, I won't distract you with that. I then sort of, there was a pretty much a sort of consensus around the people that I was talking to that technology and education were a good thing. That if you give children these tools that allow them to access all of this information, more information than they could possibly get out of books, and they can kind of steer it themselves and steer some of their learning, and the power that they had in their bedrooms, in their hands, was immense. And that was just bound to be a good thing. And if we could just hook that up, and then also we might be able to do some other things like link home and school better, which would also be a really good thing, because we kind of know that the most important thing for the success of education is really great teaching, for great schools is really good head teachers, really good leaders, but the most important thing for the success of a child's education is parents and their involvement in their learning. So we could do that thing with education too. So I decided, almost without having to refer it to too many people, that I'd just stand up at BET, which is a big technology fair that we have every year. We had BET here in London last week. So this was 4 years ago. I just stood up and said, right, we're going to end the digital divide in education. And I'll set up a task force which I'll chair to work out how we're going to do it. Because I kind of figured, if I set a big ambition and had some great officials who would corral the industry and a few others around, then we kind of try and find a solution, because it was in the industry's interest to grow the market through doing this. And then I'd have some solutions to take to my Secretary of State at the Bulls and to take to Gordon. And then there might be a great announcement for them at the end of it, because in the end, I'm sure it's still the case that number 10 really likes announcements. Doesn't like problems, just likes announcements. So, so that's what we did, and we had great engagement from the industry, and in the end, we were able to do it. Now, I don't think you could do that again now, because things have changed, and that's no criticism of a change of government. It's just the nature of a change of government, and agendas have changed, and that's at the heart of how you do this. In my experience, I mean, it's just not rocket science. It's about just trying to understand where people are coming from. We were where we were then when money wasn't the first thing that everyone asked you about, and when there were some assumptions about technology and education going well together. And so we could go out and we could sell it and we could make the argument, and I could in the end win the argument with Ed Balls' help with the Treasury to get the few hundred million that we needed to make home access work. Couldn't do that. Now you'd start off with more for less and the big society. Now you would say, well, actually, you might not think that technology is your starting point in education, because you might be really into Pope and Dryden in everyone's hands. But, well, hang on, you could give children the whole of the English literary canon for nothing through e-books if they've got a device. Because I've got on my iPhone the whole of the first folio of Shakespeare. I've got Dryden and Pope. I'm no great fan of Dryden and Pope, really. I'm just not that bloke. But I downloaded them just to show that I could. And some Dickens and some Austen, and, for free. You could do that for kids. So that starts to get at someone's agenda who cares about that approach to education. But you can also say, but then there's all sorts of, not only can you save on textbooks, but you can save on a bunch of other things. If we do e-assessment rather than paper and pen, not only, that's lots of gains in terms of linking better to the world of work, but you can make lots of savings on your testing budget as well. You can start to bring more flexibility in how you deploy your workforce. There's lots of financial savings and accountability gains that you can make by properly deploying technology in education in a more systematic way. So then you start to get into people's agenda. And then the final thing is to go into where Richard will come in now imminently. This is your 30-second warning, Richard. Which is to say, but there's also something that's gone on in the way I think children are learning. I think a revolution has taken place in the way children have been learning in our society, only not very often in school of late, because they've got access to this extraordinary range of information and applications. The app economy has arrived, and that combination of personal devices and cloud. But the cultures attached to it are really exciting, and the cultures of peer-to-peer, of in the end social networking. I think then the next gain we can make in the field that I get passionate about, which is education. Because if we can create social learning networks, we can do something really exciting and pretty low cost.